Flock Talk. As you can see, we are sitting in my living room. I'm on the couch, the tank is behind me, which means that we're going to be doing another Flock Talks sort of video where we sit down and chat. Today we're going to be doing part 3 of reviewing your cages. I wasn't sure whether or not I was actually going to do a part 3 for this. I put a poll out on my Instagram story seeing if you guys would like me to do a part 3 or if you guys didn't think it was necessary, and 94% of you said, yeah, go for it, you'd love to see it. So here we are, we're doing part 3. And we're gonna have some fun with it. I did try and pick ones that had some things that were either interesting to me or things I hadn't commented on the previous 2 episodes. So I tried to make this one a little bit more than just kind of the same things over and over again. Again, if I ignored your cage, it wasn't because I don't like your cage. It was probably just because it had a lot of things that I'd already commented about before. And if you haven't noticed it already, there is a plant just floating around in the tank back there. Just ignore it. I know it's there. I planted it again yesterday. The Pleco in this tank just hates that one plant. He doesn't want anything to do with it. Every time I put it in the ground, he pulls that one plant out of the ground. I didn't feel like being chest deep in water today, so it's just gonna stay floating around in the background. I'm sorry if it's distracting, but I didn't feel like getting covered in fish water. That wasn't on my to-do list today. Okay, so let's hop right on into the cages. The first cage we have here was submitted by Ollie the Cockatiel. This cage is again a really strange size to me. It is super vertical, and I don't know why they make bird cages that way. Birds can't really fly straight up in a super confined space. They can if you give them enough training to do so, but generally speaking it takes so much energy for them to do that. They just don't want to, and the amount of space that they have makes them a lot hesitant to. So this is a really strange vertically sized cage. So this individual said, we are working on getting a bigger cage for him. He has 4 natural wood perches, 1 platform perch, 1 dowel perch, and many toys. I change the toys once a week. He eats a mix of vegetables and fruit and pellets, and he is 1 year old. I was wondering if he needs a bigger cage based on your thoughts. He is only in the cage at night. Okay, so yes, I would definitely give him a bigger cage. Even though this one is just a night one, as you've said, he still needs to be able to fully spread his wings, and I can't exactly tell from the picture if he can do that, but even for bedtime cages, there has to be enough space. Noodle, can we stop chewing all the buttons? Noodle. Yeah, there still does need to be enough space for them to properly spread their wings in all directions and feel comfortable, because just because they're going to bed, when they need to stretch or they do need a little bit of exercise in the morning before you get to letting them out, they will need to be able to properly stretch, otherwise all their feathers are going to get really mangled and they will feel very cramped and feel very stressed. The other thing I would recommend switching out is you do have these kind of like auto feeder, weekend feeder water silos. I'm not sure if it's used for water or seed in this context. I really don't like those silos, those vertical feeders, because they're so hard to clean, and 9 times out of 10 they're made out of plastic, which harbors a lot of bacteria. In terms of keeping things clean and keeping food rotation great, they can be really good for that, for leaving a good amount of food in there and having the food kind of constantly rotating. However, they generally give you enough to put like a week's worth of food in there, and then the food is in this not airtight container and it's being left out in the air to kind of get old, to get stale, and lose some of its nutritional properties. So if you're gonna fill it, only fill it enough for a day or 2. I wouldn't fill it for an entire week, because then you're just leaving the seeds out exposed, they could get bugs in it, and things like that. You have done a really good job of utilizing the space and making sure that your perches and your swings and things take up the whole height of the cage. You have like a big swing platform ladder thing going on at the very bottom, as well as some perches that go up decently high. So you've done a really good job at the placement for your perches, how they're all kind of going diagonally, they're not cluttering up the center, the bird can still kind of hop up everything, and it's not bogging down the space. All of the perches do appear to be going pretty flat though. Even the ones that are natural wood perches, there isn't much of an angle to them. I would take kind of the dowel one you've got on the bottom and just push it up on a weird angle. Give them a little bit more of that depth. Give them something more to encourage them to have different pressure points being used on their feet. The second cage here was submitted by Nitya. I'm really sorry. We had this in another episode where I butchered a name and I'm super sorry. I think it's Nitya, but I don't I don't know, I'm super sorry. This cage is for two budgies named Millie and Milo, and they say I have scraped the dowel perches with a knife to add texture and put them at an angle. Perfect, scraping them up with a knife is a really good way to make them a little less smooth, and putting them at an angle is always a good way to give them different pressure points. This is a beautiful size cage for two budgies. And I remember I put this cage in here because I was really confused as to what was going on at the bottom of this cage. It looks like a piece of carpet has been put at the bottom, and I'm not entirely sure if it's like reptile carpet or if there's something else going on. I'm not sure why it's there. Carpet would harbor a lot of bacteria. You're not going to get all the little seeds out of it. Poop is going to sit in there, and there's nothing stopping the birds from accessing it. Most cages have a grate at the bottom, which is a pain to clean, so a lot of people take them out. However, it is very important for their health and safety, because birds will go and try and eat their droppings or go around and eat seed that has fallen, that a poop has also landed on, which has moisture in it, which will then cause the seed to either rot or get a little moldy, and then they'll accidentally be eating that and they can get sick. So I'm really confused as to why there's a carpet at the bottom. I'm sure it's great for keeping everything contained, much kind of like a litter mat, where all the grooves probably keep all the seed inside the cage. But I would try and have a grate over top. You can use that carpet at the bottom if that's really what you enjoy and you throw it in the washing machine or something to clean it, and have a couple that you swap out. It is a very interesting idea, and it's better than kind of like the corn cob beddings that can be super, super dusty and bad for their lungs. This could be a really interesting and like reusable, environmentally conscious idea to keep the bottom of the cage clean, but I would definitely have a grate over the top at least, so that way they can't access everything that's getting gathered in the carpet. Otherwise, I did really enjoy the space of this cage. It is a beautiful size for two budgies. The bar spacing is perfect. You've got a bunch of different varieties of textures. You've got the rope perch that's going this big loop at the top that's giving them a lot of good different areas to perch on and different things to hold. You've got lots of swings. Again, you've done a good job of utilizing the space and bringing all the perches down below. That was a problem we really had with the first two parts of the cage reviews, was people leaving the whole bottom halves of the cage empty. In these ones, you guys have really taken advantage of the space, put some perches up high, put some perches down low, while leaving a lot of space for them to flap. I would love to see more kind of shreddable toys in here. A lot of the toys in this cage are kind of plastic or hardwoods. There's one in the back left corner there that appears to be a Planet Pleasures toy. While some budgies do really enjoy kind of the clacking and the noises and the plastic and thrashing and things like that and just pecking at toys, a lot of them do also really appreciate foraging and appreciate kind of the crunchy texture of palm leaves. So all those woven toys that Planet Pleasures creates can be really, really beneficial for them, and I would love to see a bit more of those in there. Dish-wise, this one actually has some benefits to it. Because there are two birds that come from an extremely social species in a very large cage, they're separating their feeding. Having multiple places to feed on opposite sides of the cage and keeping the dishes very spaced out is a good way for the birds to both be able to go and eat food without having to be right beside one another or having to feel like they're forced to share their resources that they rely on. That's often where a lot of the kind of territorial, protective, aggressive behavior can stem from, is when all the birds in an enclosure are forced to share one main food supply, because they all are focusing on the fact of survival, and they want their resources that are going to keep them alive. So by splitting up those resources and putting food all over the cage, you're opening up the space a lot more, making them realize there's lots of different resources to be had, there's lots of different places for them, and the birds don't have to be close to one another in order to get those essential resources. The last cage for today was submitted by Jade and Yoshi. They say, "Here is my cage submission for your video of my parrotlet Jade. She's like a Sour Patch, sour on the outside, sweet on the inside." That's like a perfect description for parrotlets. They can be so like aggressive and confrontational, but once you kind of respect their body language and tell them that you're not there to hurt them in any way, they end up being such sweet little cuddle pugs, and all they want to do is just hop in your hair and take a nap. So this one I chose because it is a vision cage, and I have got a bone to pick with vision cages. They are well made, they're very sturdy, they're very strong, they're very bulky though, and they have this very strange setup that doesn't make sense to me at all. So when you get a vision cage, they come with like these blue plastic dishes that have one on either side, but they're split in two, so they're supposed to be like food and water on both sides of the cage. But it's designed to go on the floor, which is really strange. You generally don't want to put food and water and like their natural resources that they need to survive on the floor of a cage, because one, they're on the floor, that's where poop and things are, you're just asking for bacteria to build up. And for two, generally when you're buying a cage, you're buying a cage for a new bird. And birds that come home for the first week, they're kind of sitting up really high. They're trying to get somewhere as high and as far away from you as possible so they can feel safe and secure and kind of analyze the environment and decide whether or not they're safe here. So you want their resources to be up high where the bird is actually going to be. If the bird doesn't feel safe yet because they're new or they just got home or you just finished going somewhere and this is a new cage, they're not going to want to explore so far down that they're making themselves vulnerable on the floor of the cage. It's going to take them a really long time to actually feel comfortable enough to go down there and eat. And that can be really, really dangerous because birds, especially small birds, which most vision cages are designed for, have incredibly fast metabolism. It can start to have negative impacts on their health. They should be able to easily access that food, especially when they're in such a high stress environment, such as coming home for the first time. So these cages are always really strange to me because in theory it is a really good brand. Their cages are really strong, the bars are really sturdy, they have some decent sized cages. They are incredibly overpriced for how big they are though, and it's just really strange to me that they put the food on the bottom and just give you like these poop guards to cover them. The poop guards that they come with I think are great. The other thing I really like about vision cages is the way the doors open. Most bird cage doors open like that, like a book. And it's great and all, and it opens and it does whatever, and the bird can crawl out and they can go on top and you can work from there. Vision cage doors generally open more like a drawbridge and they drop down. And I know some of the older designs used to have like a stopper where you could open it and you could stop it there. So now you've got a new bird brought home and you have this drawbridge system so they can just walk up their cage or even along a perch that you've got lined up there and slowly come out onto this nice flat, easy to grip onto doorway so they can come out and interact with you. I honestly don't have many corrections for the way that you've set up this cage. It is beautifully set up. You have a lot of natural wood perches. You've got a lot of the rope perches going at all sorts of different angles. I don't see a single dowel in this cage. You've got perches going all the way down to the bottom. You've got toys all over the bottom. You've got foot toys scattered down there. You've got your little bean down there eating some vegetables. You've got a lot going on in here, and you've done a really good job of spreading it out. Even though there's a lot going on in this cage, there is still plenty of space for this little parrotlet to bounce around. And even in this cage, you do have the grate there. You've got probably one of those like sandpaper cage bottom covers underneath, but it looks like you still have the bars over top so the bird can't access it. There's a couple spots where it might just be kind of the picture blurring things together, where it does look like that paper's curling up a tiny bit. I would just make sure it's trimmed all the way to the edge so your bird can't accidentally eat any of the grit that's on it, because parrots aren't exactly designed to eat grit and it can cause damage, especially if it's insoluble. So that will do it for reviewing your cages part 3. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thanks to all of you who did submit and voted and told me what you guys wanted. I really appreciate all your input, and I always try to give the information and give the sort of content that you guys want to see. So thank you guys so much for everything, and I will see you all next time. Bye!